My wife walked out on me when I was told I had cancer at 29. She said, "You cost too much to save." Real classy. 5 years later, I am still here, still breathing, and still buried under medical bills big enough to bankroll a small country's defense plan. My name is Jake Miller. I am 34 years old. I used to be an auto mechanic. Now I pick up hours as a part-time rideshare driver for Uber. My hands still carry the smell of motor oil, even though I have not put a wrench to an engine in months. Most days, I haul drunk college kids to the airport and back, trying to scrape together enough to keep the lights on in my beat-up, old craftsman house. The knock came on a Tuesday morning in October. I was at the kitchen table staring at a stack of overdue bills and wondering if instant ramen counted as a balanced breakfast. Then someone started pounding on my front door like they wanted to break it off the hinges. "Mr. Miller. Mr. Jacob Miller." The voice was crisp and professional. Not a debt collector. They usually just slide threats through the mail slot. I opened the door to a tall man in an expensive suit with a leather briefcase. He looked like he had stepped straight out of a law firm advertisement. Polished shoes, perfect haircut, the whole thing. "I am Thomas Reed, an attorney with Reed & Partners. I need to speak with you about an inheritance." I almost laughed. "You have the wrong guy. Nobody in my family has two nickels to rub together. Are you Jacob Daniel Miller, formerly married to Amanda Louise Miller, diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma in 2019? My blood turned cold. "How do you know about my medical history? May I come in? This is a little complicated." I led him into the living room. It was a sagging garage sale couch and a coffee table held together by duct tape. Attorney Reed did not seem fazed. He opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Mr. Miller, you have been named the beneficiary of a substantial inheritance. 63 million United States dollars. I just stared. "That is not possible." The donor was Dr. Michael Grant, a medical researcher who specialized in cancer treatment, he said. "He passed away 6 months ago. His instructions were very specific. He wanted his estate to go to someone who survived cancer without family support. Your case came to his attention through medical records." 63 million. My head spun. It was more money than I could picture. "Why me?" Dr. Grant's notes say he was impressed by your survival despite having no support system. He wanted his money to go to someone who understands fighting alone. Attorney Reed slid a photograph across the taped-up table. "There is a complication. Your estranged wife and her boyfriend are contesting the inheritance. They claim you are not mentally fit to manage this amount." The photo showed Amanda and a man I did not recognize sitting in what looked like a conference room at a law office. Amanda looked exactly the same as the day she walked out. Perfect blonde hair, designer clothes, that cold smile that used to turn my stomach. Now it just made me angry. "Who is the guy?" I asked. "Brandon Cole," Reed said. "He works in pharmaceutical sales. He appears to be advising your wife on how to challenge the estate." I studied the picture. Brandon looked like every pharmaceutical sales rep I have ever met. Teeth bleached white, a gym-built body, an expensive watch, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy, and drives a Bayer-Riche Motor and Werka automobile with vanity plates. "What kind of challenge?" Attorney Reed's mouth tightened. "They are claiming your cancer affected your judgment. They have filed for a competency hearing." "They can do that. They can try," he said. "Mr. Miller, there is something else." He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward me. This went live an hour ago. It was a social media post from someone named Brittany. The image was me from 5 years ago, right in the middle of chemotherapy, bald, skeletal, barely hanging on. The caption said, "Jake's cancer was totally fake. He has been cheating the system for years. #cancer fraud. #exposed." It felt like a punch to the gut. "That is a lie." "I know," Reed said, "but it already has over 10,000 shares. Your wife's friend appears to have a large following." I handed the phone back. My hands were shaking with anger. "Let me make sure I am hearing this right. I survived cancer. My wife leaves me. Now she is trying to steal money that was left to me, while her friends spread lies about my illness online." That is an accurate summary. I walked to the front window and looked out at the same street where I have lived alone for 5 years. The neighbors stopped talking to me after Amanda left, like divorce might rub off. I remembered coming home from chemotherapy to an empty house because my wife could not be bothered to drive me to treatment. "Mr. Reed, what do I need to do to fight this?" "First, we document your current mental state," he said. "I will arrange a psychological evaluation. Second, we prepare for this to get ugly. Your wife and her boyfriend seem determined to paint you as unstable. I turned back to him. How ugly? Social media campaigns. Character assassination. They will try to dig up anything they can use against you. Thomas said. People get vicious when this much money is on the line. I pictured Amanda's face in that photo he had shown me. That calculating look. The same look she wore the day she told me she was leaving. You do not understand, Mr. Reed, I said. It is already ugly. It has been ugly for 5 years. Thomas closed the folder and slid it into his briefcase. He stood. I will be in touch within 48 hours, he said. In the meantime, stay off social media and avoid any contact with your wife or her circle. When the door shut, I sat on the couch and stared at his business card. $63 million. Enough to wipe out every medical bill. Enough to buy a new house. Maybe even take a real vacation where I did not count pennies. But first, I had to deal with Amanda. The Pine Knot is the kind of bar where everybody knows your business before you finish your first drink. It sits at the corner of Main and 3rd Street, a squat brick box with neon beer signs in the windows and a parking lot full of pickup trucks and motorcycles. I have been going there since I turned 21. Back when Amanda and I were still good, she would sometimes meet me after work. These days, it is my refuge. A place to nurse a beer and pretend the rest of the world is on mute. I pushed through the heavy wooden door and saw them right away in the corner booth. Amanda and a man sitting too close together. Her manicured hand rested on his forearm. She was laughing that fake little laugh she used when she wanted something. Tommy, the bartender who has known me for years, caught my eye and tilted his chin toward them. They have been here for an hour, he said quietly. Talking about you. What kind of talk? I asked. The kind you probably do not want to hear. I ordered a beer and tried to mind my own business, but their voices carried across the mostly empty room. The boyfriend had a loud, show-off voice that wanted attention. The guy is obviously not stable, he said. Look at where he lives. Look at what he does for work. You cannot trust someone like that with $60 million. $63 million, Amanda corrected. And you are right. Jake never was good with money. Even before the cancer, he could barely manage his checking account. My hand tightened on the bottle until I thought the glass might crack. She was rewriting history like she always did. I had run our budget for 8 years. I was the one who made sure the bills got paid, who balanced the checkbook, who tried to plan for a future we never got. The cancer angle is perfect, the boyfriend went on. We can say it affected his brain. They call it chemotherapy brain. Makes people forgetful and confused. A judge would have to question whether he is competent. A friend's post is already going viral, Amanda said. By tomorrow, half the town will think he faked the whole thing. That is when I snapped. I stood, walked to their booth, and slid into the seat across from them. Hello, Amanda. She looked up, surprised. For a second, something like guilt crossed her face. Then the same hard mask I remembered from our last fight settled in. Jake, what are you doing here? Having a drink in my usual place, I said. The real question is, what are you doing here? Her boyfriend leaned forward and puffed up like a guard dog. We are having a private conversation, buddy. Find another bar stool. Up close, he was exactly what I expected. Spray tan. Perfect hair. Clothes that cost more than my monthly take-home. The kind of man who has never had a real problem in his life. Brandon, right? I asked. I think all 3 of us should talk. There is nothing to discuss, Amanda said. You will get your competency hearing, and we will let a judge decide if you can handle money. Funny you mentioned that, I said, taking a slow sip. I have been doing a little reading about you, Brandon. Pharmaceutical sales. That must be nice money. His confident grin faltered. What is your point? No big point, I said. Just curious about the man who is giving my wife legal advice. Tell me, how is your credit score these days? The color drained from his face. Amanda looked between us, confused. I do not know what you are talking about, Brandon said. Sure you do, I said. The thing about driving for Uber is you meet all kinds of people. One of them is a guy named Steve at First National Bank. Steve has some stories about local pharmaceutical sales reps who cannot seem to make their car payments on time. Brandon shoved back from the booth. Come on, Amanda. We do not have to listen to this. But Amanda was still staring at him, a new look in her eyes. Brandon, what is he talking about? Nothing, he said. He is just trying to cause trouble. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording application I had been running since I sat down. Actually, I said, I think the trouble started about 5 minutes ago when you two were talking about my chemotherapy brain and planning how to cheat me out of an inheritance. You cannot record us without permission, Brandon sputtered. Actually, in this state, only one person has to consent to an audio recording, I said. That person is me. I looked at Amanda. Did you know your boyfriend owes 40,000 United States dollars on a Bayerisch Motor and Werke automobile he cannot afford, and that his company has been garnishing his wages for the past 6 months? Amanda went pale. Is that true? Amanda, do not listen to him, Brandon said. He is desperate. The desperate one is you, Brandon, I said. Which explains why you are so interested in my inheritance. I stood and set a $10 bill on the table. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to withdraw your competency challenge, and you are going to tell your friend Brittany to delete that post claiming I faked cancer. Or what? Amanda said. I gave her the same cold smile she had given me the day she walked out. Or I will make both of your lives very uncomfortable. I have learned a lot about fighting dirty in the last 5 years. Cancer did not end me. It taught me how to survive. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Amanda, next time you want a private conversation about wrecking your ex-husband, do not hold it in his favorite bar. As I headed for the door, they began to argue. Brandon's voice climbed higher and tighter. Amanda's voice went low and flat. It sounded like a partnership starting to crack under pressure. Tommy caught my arm as I passed the bar. That was something, he said quietly. That was just the beginning, I said. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from numbers I did not recognize, but a few were from people I used to call friends. The first text I opened was from my old buddy Kyle. Dude, what the heck? Brittany is saying you faked cancer? That is messed up. The second was from my cousin Mark. Saw the post. Do you want me to pay this Brittany woman a visit? The third was from my former coworker Paul. Always thought something was off about your cancer story. Too convenient. I deleted the messages without answering and drove straight to Thomas Reed's office. He was waiting with a laptop computer and a stack of newspapers. It has gotten worse, he said, without any warm-up. 3 local news outlets picked up the story, and 2 cancer advocacy groups are demanding an investigation into your medical records. Can they do that? Not legally, he said, but they can make enough noise to sway public opinion, and that could influence a judge at your competency hearing. He turned the laptop toward me. Brittany's original post had been shared over 50,000 times. The comments were a split between outrage and support, most of it from people who knew nothing but wanted to pick a side. We need to push back, Thomas said, but with care. If we look like we are overreacting, it only feeds more speculation. What do you suggest? First, we document everything, he said. I want copies of your medical records, statements from your doctors, proof of treatment. Second, we investigate them. If they plan to play dirty, we should be ready to do the same. I thought about Brandon's panicked face when I mentioned his finances. I may already have a head start. Thomas raised an eyebrow. Brandon Cole is not the success story he pretends to be, I said. And I have a feeling there is more where that came from. What are you thinking, he asked. I am thinking I will do what I do best, I said. I will drive around town, listen to people talk, and learn things they do not want me to know. The beauty of driving for Uber is people treat you like you are invisible. They climb in the back seat and start making calls or talk to each other like I am not there. In the last 5 years, I have heard more secrets than a priest or a therapist. That afternoon, I got a ride request from downtown. The pickup address looked familiar. It was the building where Brandon worked. When I pulled up, he was on the sidewalk, talking hard into his phone. He slid into my back seat, still mid-sentence. No, he said. You do not understand. This could be big money. Life-changing money. He gave me an address in the wealthy part of town and went right back to the call. I adjusted the rearview mirror so I could see his face and started driving. Look, I know what we agreed to, Brandon said. But things changed. This inheritance is real, and if we play it right, we both come out ahead. I drove slow and took the longest legal route to his destination. She does not suspect anything, does she? He asked whoever was on the other end. Good, because if this works, we will have enough money to disappear. Start over somewhere else. My blood ran cold. They were not just trying to steal my inheritance. They were planning to run away with the money. The competency hearing is set for next week, Brandon said into the phone. Her lawyer thinks we have a real shot, especially with all the social media attention. People already believe the guy is a fraud. I turned into the driveway of an expensive-looking house. Brandon ended the call and stepped out. I made sure to read the address twice. It matters to know where your enemies sleep. Thanks for the ride, he said. I's never meeting mine. No problem, I said. Have a great day. As soon as the door closed behind him, I called Thomas Reed. I need a favor, I said. Find out who Brandon Cole has been talking to about the inheritance case. And I need everything you can get on a woman named Brittany who is spreading lies about me online. What did you learn? He asked. They are not just trying to take my money. They are planning to disappear with it. Thomas was quiet for a beat. Jake, I have to ask, are you about to do anything illegal? No, I said, but I am going to do something effective. That evening, I drove to Amanda's townhouse. It was one of those new developments where every place looks cloned, with perfect lawns, 2-car garages, and no soul. It was nothing like the street where we used to live, with big old trees and houses that had personality. I parked across the way and waited. At 8:30, Brandon's Bayerisch Motor and Werke automobile rolled into the driveway. At 9:15, a white Mercedes-Benz arrived. The driver was a young woman with platinum blonde hair and designer clothes. Brittany, I figured. Through the big front windows, I watched them gather at Amanda's dining table with papers spread out in a mess. They were planning something, and I had a pretty good idea what. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Found Brittany's full name. Brittany Walsh, 31. Social media influencer. 200,000 followers on Instagram. Also found something on Brandon. He has been married twice. Both ended in messy divorces involving financial disputes. I typed back, what kind of financial disputes? He replied, accusations of hiding assets and pushing his wives to sign over property. Never convicted, but the pattern is there. I stared at Amanda's house while my ex-wife laughed and waved her hands like a coach calling plays. Maybe she did not know what kind of man she had taken up with. Maybe she did and did not care as long as she got what she wanted. Either way, she was about to find out I was not the same broken man she left 5 years ago. Cancer taught me how to fight for my life. Now I was going to fight for everything else. The competency hearing was set for Thursday morning at the county courthouse. Thomas had told me what to expect, questions about my mental state, my money history, and whether I could make sound choices. What he did not prep me for was the circus out front. Brittany had put together a protest. About 30 people stood on the steps holding signs that read "Cancer Fraud" and "Justice for Real Survivors." Local news crews stuck microphones in faces. A few cancer support groups sent representatives to monitor things. This is insane, I muttered as Thomas and I pushed through the crowd. It is theater, he said. Do not let it get in your head. Inside, Amanda and Brandon were sitting with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in a pricey suit. Amanda had dressed the part, navy blue dress, simple jewelry, hair pulled back neat and professional. She looked like the grieving ex-wife of a troubled man. Brandon, by contrast, looked rattled. He kept checking his phone and whispering at their lawyer like his life depended on it. Judge Patricia Morrison took the bench. A stern woman in her 60s, with roughly 20 years on the job. She called the hearing to order and told Amanda's lawyer to begin. Your Honor, the attorney said, we are here because we have serious concerns about Mr. Miller's mental fitness to manage a substantial inheritance. The evidence points to a pattern of erratic behavior, poor financial judgment, and possible fraud related to his claimed cancer diagnosis. For the next hour, they put on a show. They brought in a psychiatrist who had never met me, but was willing to testify that chemotherapy can cause long-term cognitive problems. They handed up printouts of Brittany's social media posts and page after page of comments from strangers who had decided I was a liar. Brandon took the stand and tried to paint me as unstable and dangerous. He said I had threatened him and Amanda at the Pine Knot. He seemed paranoid, Brandon testified. He talked about recording conversations and made vague threats. It was honestly frightening. When it was our turn, Thomas got to work. Calm. Precise. He walked the judge through my complete medical file, pathology reports, treatment schedules, doctor notes, follow-up visits, every piece of proof. Thomas called my next witness, Dr. Lauren Collins, the oncologist who treated me. She spoke calm and straight. Mr. Miller had stage 3 lymphoma, Dr. Collins testified. His treatment included 6 months of intensive chemotherapy, followed by a course of radiation therapy. I can provide photographs from his treatment sessions if the court wishes to see them. Then Thomas walked the judge through Brandon's money mess and his pattern of squeezing women for cash. Your Honor, Thomas said, this is not about Mr. Miller's capacity. This is about greed. Brandon Cole has a documented pattern of targeting vulnerable women and pushing them into questionable financial decisions. Mrs. Miller is merely his latest mark. Amanda's attorney objected, but the doubt was already landing. I saw it in Judge Morrison's eyes. Then Thomas played his ace. He introduced the audio I recorded at the Pine Knot, the part where Amanda and Brandon talked about my so-called chemotherapy brain and their plan to attack the inheritance. This recording makes clear the petitioners are not motivated by Mr. Miller's well-being, Thomas said. They are motivated by spite and the prospect of easy money. Judge Morrison listened to the whole thing, brow furrowing deeper by the minute. When the audio ended, she looked at Amanda and Brandon like she had stepped in something foul. Mrs. Miller, the judge said, do you have anything to say about this? Amanda rose, and her cool mask finally slipped. Your Honor, my ex-husband has been stalking and harassing us. He is obviously unstable. The fact that he secretly recorded us proves it. Actually, Judge Morrison replied, it proves he was prudent. The recording is lawful under state statute, and it demonstrates your claims about his mental state are manufactured. She ruled in my favor, dismissed the competency petition, and ordered Amanda to cover my legal fees. When the gavel came down, relief hit so hard I had to steady myself on the table. But as we walked out, the wind felt strange and thin. The paperwork said I was competent. The crowd outside did not care. On the courthouse steps, the protest had grown. Brittany was giving an interview, telling a camera the judge had been bought and promising to dig deeper into my past. This is not over, Amanda hissed as she passed me. People know what you really are now. You are right, I said. It is not over. And you have no idea who I really am. That night, I sat in my living room with a beer, turning the day over in my head. I had protected the inheritance, but I had lost something else: privacy, reputation, maybe even the version of myself I had learned to live with. For 5 years, I had been the abandoned husband and the guy who beat cancer. People pitied that man. Now I was the man with money, and people loved to hate that man. Maybe that was fine. Maybe it was time to stop playing the victim and be something else. I called Thomas. I want to talk strategy. Strategy for what? For making sure this truly ends. The inheritance cleared on a Monday morning in November. 63 million United States dollars, minus taxes and legal fees, and still more money than I ever thought I would see. I stared at the balance for 5 full minutes, trying to make my brain accept it. My first instinct was to wipe out every debt, medical, mortgage, credit cards I had maxed out just to keep breathing. Thomas had warned me to wait. Once you start spending, he said, people will watch every move. Make sure your first moves are the right moves. So I waited, and I researched. With a real budget and a very good private investigator, you can learn a lot. Brandon was not just broke, he was drowning. The Bayerisch Motor and Werke automobile was 3 payments behind. His credit cards were tapped. Both ex-wives were pursuing unpaid alimony. He had been dipping into his company's petty cash, probably planning to replace it once my inheritance fell into his lap. Brittany was just as messy. Her influence was puffed up with fake followers and purchased engagement. She ran sponsored posts for products that did not exist. The Federal Trade Commission had her on a list, and several companies were suing for breach of contract. But Amanda, she was the most instructive. My ex-wife had been having an affair with her boss, Jason Morris, for over a year. She was also siphoning money out of her employer's marketing budget to fuel her lifestyle while she waited for Brandon's get-rich-quick schemes to finally pay. Armed with that, I started my campaign. First move, Brandon. I bought his debt. All of it. The car loan. The credit cards. The arrears owed to both ex-wives. When you have $60 million, you can buy almost anything, including the right to collect someone else's debts. On Wednesday morning, Brandon woke up to see his Bayerisch Motor and Werke automobile hooked to a flatbed in front of his house. Not by the bank, but by a recovery company I hired. They were polite. They were efficient. And they made sure the whole block had a front row seat. That afternoon, a certified letter landed in his mailbox. It said every one of his balances had been consolidated under Miller Holdings, Limited Liability Company. He had 30 days to pay in full or face legal action. He called me that evening, voice shaking with fury and fear. What do you think you were doing? Collecting on debt I purchased legally, I said, calm as a lake. Nothing against the law about it. You cannot do this. I can't, I said. My lawyers were very careful. You owe me 230,000 United States dollars, Brandon. When should I expect payment? Silence stretched. You know I do not have that kind of money, he finally said. Then you should have thought about that before you try to steal mine. Next, I turned to Brittany. I hired a team of social media forensic auditors to pull every thread. Fake followers, phony engagement, sponsored posts that violated Federal Trade Commission rules. We packaged it into a tight, documented report and sent it to every brand she had ever worked with, every platform she relied on, and every agency that might take an interest. Within a week, Brittany's Instagram account was suspended. Her video channel was demonetized. Federal charges for wire fraud were in motion. Her polished online empire folded like a cheap card table. Amanda needed a different touch. I bought the company where she worked, a 30-person marketing shop whose owner was ready to retire. I paid twice what it was worth and became Amanda's boss overnight. I did not fire her. Too obvious. Too clumsy. Instead, I turned the screws one click at a time. I moved her office to the basement. I handed her the dullest, most tedious assignments. I brought in an efficiency consultant to track every missed detail, every late arrival, every long lunch. Most important, I made sure she understood that I knew about her affair with her boss, Jason Morris, and the money she siphoned from the marketing budget. We need to talk, I said, calling her into my office on day one. She sat across from me looking like she would have rather been anywhere else. She had lost weight since the hearing. Dark circles smudged under her eyes. This is harassment, she said. This is business, I said. You work for my company now. That means you follow policy. That includes not stealing from the marketing budget and not sleeping with married clients. Her face went bloodless. I do not know what you are talking about. I slid a folder across the desk. Bank records. Hotel receipts. Email correspondence. Should I keep going? Her hands shook as she paged through the proof. What do you want? I want you to feel what it is like when someone who should care about you chooses to wreck your life. Jake, please. I know I hurt you, but... No, but, I said. You left me to face cancer alone, then tried to grab money meant to help people who fought the way I fought. You made my life hell. I am returning the favor. She began to cry, not the tears of regret, but the tears of a person who got caught. I will quit, she said. No, you will not. You will stay, do your work, and think about what you did every single day. If you quit, I will make sure everyone knows about Jason and about the stolen funds. Jason will lose his job. His wife will leave him, and you will never be hired in marketing again. She left without another word. The last piece clicked into place a month later. Brandon, staring down bankruptcy and possible charges, got desperate. He sold anything of value, including information about Amanda's crimes. I used what he handed over to push the case along, and Amanda was arrested for embezzlement. It was not a massive amount, about 15,000 United States dollars over 2 years, but it was enough for a felony. Local news ran the story. The same reporters who parroted Brittany's cancer fraud nonsense now covered Amanda's real financial crimes. The irony did not miss me. Brandon tried to run. My investigators watched him and tipped the police. They picked him up at a bus station 2 counties away. Brittany, staring at federal prosecution and total ruin, posted a public apology on what remained of her accounts. She admitted her cancer claims were false and asked the survivor community for forgiveness. 6 months after the hearing, all 3 were facing charges. Brandon and Amanda were staring at prison time. Brittany was looking at federal court. I should have felt great. I should have felt clean. Instead, I mostly felt empty. The money did not fix the hurt. The revenge did not close the wounds. I was wealthy, but still alone. Powerful, but still angry. One evening, I sat in my old house. I had never moved, even though I could buy anything now. Thomas called. It is over, he said. Brandon took a plea. 5 years for fraud and embezzlement. Amanda's trial is set for next month, but her lawyer says she will probably plead out 2 to 3 years. And Brittany, the federal prosecutors will offer probation if she helps with their larger social media fraud case. She will have to pay everything back. I hung up and looked around the living room. Same sagging couch. Same coffee table with duct tape. Same stack of bills on the counter. Bills I could finally erase with one transfer. The revenge was finished, but peace did not show up with it. I had turned into something I was not sure I liked. I walked to the kitchen window and stared down the street I had called home for 15 years. The same street where neighbors stopped waving after Amanda left. The same street where I dragged myself home from chemotherapy to an empty house. The same street where I rebuilt from nothing. Tomorrow, I decided I would start over. I would use the money for what Dr. Michael Grant intended, to help cancer patients who are fighting alone. But tonight, I let myself feel the win. My enemies were done. Justice had landed. And maybe, just maybe, I had proved that a victim can become a victor. The cancer did not end me. The abandonment did not break me. In the end, I won.